All right, you guys. So, this is one of the episodes that I'm going to be doing where I'm explaining the book, Message to South Central, right? Now, I made this book kind of for my peers, the people in my generation who are going through a lot of emotional heartache and a lot of trauma due to their community, due to their family, due to just, the circumstance that we were put in. When you grew up in certain places in Los Angeles, you got to deal with certain things that other people might not even be aware of sometimes. I actually remember a story. I was in a drive-thru with my mom when I was about 13, 14 years old when a spiritual awakening began, right? I remember growing up, my mom was always praying. She was always, seeking of a higher force, asking for things. And I was getting a little bit confused, as anybody who is growing up in these environments would be, we're sitting here praying to God all day, but nothing's changing. We still live in the same place. We still not getting the money. I'm going to school. I'm seeing other people with J's on, clothes on, stuff like that. And we not getting that, that harvest at that time, So I looked over to her and I had asked her, I was like, Mom, why do you believe in God? You can't see him. You can't talk to him. Nothing about what you're praying to seems real. Why do you believe in it? And she actually took a really long pause. I believe it was about at least a solid like 30 seconds, which 30 seconds of somebody just being quiet after you ask them a question. You kind of like, what the fuck? Like what's going on? And without her making eye contact, right? She was just like, God's going to do something in your life that reveals his presence. Until then, conversation over. Just like that. And I was like really confused, I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Like I just asked you like a very clear and obvious question. Why do you believe in God? And you just gave me a blanket statement. And that made me kind of not believe it any, even further. It was kind of rubbing me wrong, especially when we get into things like Christianity. And I wasn't seeing any black people inside of these Bibles. I wasn't seeing none of my skin tone. I was starting to raise a lot of questions and that really instilled it. But following up, in my later stages of life, I'm 22 now. Even though I don't believe in Christianity, I'm more of a spiritual person. The Most High, God, just direct source of energy, you feel me? God has definitely shown his presence in my life in a spiritual way. And it proved everything that she said in that drive-thru to be true with the few words that she did say. I've had some spiritual interactions. I've had some very eye-opening things happen in my life. And that's kind of the inspiration behind this content, the books and stuff that I'm putting out. It's all of that spiritual downloads and all of that spiritual wisdom that I got gave when I finally answered that destiny phone call, which I'm actually going to be talking about in this video, probably one of my next videos, because it is a chapter in the book, So before I get into this, I really want to thank my family. I want to thank my mom, my dad, my grandparents, my cousins, my siblings, just everybody. And I also want to thank South Central. I want to thank Los Angeles for sculpting me into the intellect that I am today. Without these experiences, without these outlooks, without these things happening to me, I probably wouldn't have had, the wisdom that I have today and be able to articulate it in the manner that I am. So with that being said, let's get into it. Chapter 1 is basically talking about the future of South Central. Now, if I'm being honest, I predict a really terrible event happening to South Central or just Los Angeles in general, right? I don't know if it's a bill that they pass. I don't know if it's a certain law that they put in motion, but I see a predicament where we're going to have our backs put up against the wall, right? Now, I wrote this chapter in this book. It says at the bottom, 10/23/2023, right? So this was before the ICE raids and everything started happening. And in this chapter, I was referencing, us being put in a predicament where the laws necessarily don't protect us, where we're put in a predicament where we can't rely on our own police force. We can't rely on our own government to do the things that they, need to do. And it's going to it's going to come down to necessarily us, our gangs, our artists, and our leaders. And it's crazy because a lot of people say that we need to get rid of gang members and everything like that in Los Angeles. But let's be real. If at any given time, the government, the police force decided they wanted to turn on black people, turn on our community, similar to what they were doing with these ICE raids, it would only be able to go so far because of our gangs. We have to remember the root of how all of that type of stuff started. It was a Black Panther movement. And even though we may have got lost somewhere along the tracks, the root of it is still alive. If anything of that severity was to take place, they would be the ones on the front line. They are already to crash out. So giving them a reason to crash out, it's like, oh, let's do it. And, the artist is actually a very beneficial, factor in these political movements because artists have the ability to articulate the things that's going on around them. While yes, the political leaders are able to do that, the artists have emotion. They're able to really become in tune with what's happening around them and articulate it in a way where other people can feel it. That is a very key root in any type of change, any type of revolution happening or anything like that. Being able to spark the emotion in somebody. So the artist is going to be the ones that's, articulating these things, bringing out the depths of what the community is going through while the gangs are protecting them. And now those political leaders, those influential figures, the ones who just not know how to use their brain very, very, very good, the ones who knows how to type up the documents, talk to the government officials and stuff like that. Those are going to be the people that's responsible for actually putting the things that the community is asking for in order. If we need boats and stuff like that to get back to our country, okay, you know how to do that. Whether it's plane, whatever the case, resources, we need the smart niggas. We need the ones who went to school, went to law school and stuff like that, because those are going to be the ones that if anything was to happen to the Black community, they would have the smarts to actually put some things in motion, actually sit behind that desk and that table and write out these documents. That takes patience and knowledge. So we need all of these factors. Now, we can't even act like something like this is like too far-fetched or out of the norm or something like that can't happen, because look at our recent years. We can even go back all the way to 2020. We've seen viruses spark off. We've seen Black Lives Matter. We've seen these ICE raids happen. We've seen multiple events that had literally happened in a blink of an eye where it can spark an outrage or uprage in the community and things can change in the blink of an eye. So I'm not saying this to put fear in anybody's heart, but I am saying this to bring a certain level of awareness of where we're currently standing. So if anything like this was to happen in the future, we aren't lacking this type of, our foundational roots of how to move forward as a community, when it actually is time for us to make our own food and fund ourselves so we can get ourselves out of this rat race. Now, chapter 2, I titled, That's Not Rap, Homie. And this one right here is really deep. My grandfather put out the very first rap album. He's from the Watts Prophets. His name is Anthony Amdi Hamilton. You feel me? And when that rap album came out, it wasn't with the spirit of where we're at right now, right? When we look back at the times and when those first rap albums and stuff came out, it was around 1969, right? 1968, which was only about 4 to 5 years after the Watts riots happened in Los Angeles, right? At the time, that was also when the Martin Luther King, the Malcolm X's, and all that other type of stuff was really at its, I'm not going to say its height, but it was taking its form and it was really potent in the communities. Now, when we tie back to these old rap albums, yes, they're saying pretty violent things. They are saying, oh, kill Whitey. I remember my papa saying that in one of his songs actually threw me off guard because, looking back, he's 85 now. So to actually hear him saying these things in a song, it was like, whoa. But it was like, kill him, get him out of here. We don't need him. Get him out of Black's way. They were very violent, like how we're showing now, right? But it was directed towards something. It wasn't directed at our communities. They weren't telling you to go crash out on somebody that looked like you. They were telling you to go crash out on the ones who put us in this predicament in the first place, right? Everything about rap music at the time was coming from a spirit of, yes, rebellion, but it was from a spirit of revolution as well. Yes, of course, there was R&B and things like that coming out, but rap in particular, it was the voice of the streets, and they needed somewhere to articulate and get their message out. And that's necessary. That's really how rap started. My grandpa even says he thinks Malcolm X was a rapper. When you listen to the ways that he was articulating and like he was rhyming, Ballad of the Bullet, all these, I had a dream, all these things, that they were doing. They were true rappers, because when you get to the core root of rapping, the definition of it, it just means to talk, which I think a lot of people forgot or they either don't know, Rapping isn't, oh, I'm trying to rhyme, I'm trying to be cool, I'm trying to make something sound a certain way. It's literally what I'm doing right now. And they just had the smart idea to put some music behind it. And that's how the genre started. So it's crazy because I hear a lot of rappers talking about what's it called? I'm not rapping, I'm just talking. But that was like, it's the same thing. And then when you start talking to my grandfather and other, deep, Pan-Africanists, they will also start telling you that rap actually came from Africa. They don't really take the credit of it completely, but they do take credit of the genre that was started because they put out the first album with the word rap in it, which, solidified that genre for the music industry. But rap is something that was ancestral. Our generations, like hundreds of years back, were rapping. But these things were viewed as rituals, maybe. These things were viewed as, certain practices, which was okay. But I believe that there was always music circles. There was always dancers. There was always, people in the group using their voice to create some type of rhythm or emotion. That was always here. Now, what's funny is I hear a lot of people calling rappers egotistical, right? I'm hearing a lot of rappers, refer to what they're putting out as damaging to the community. But if you were to actually open your third eye, a lot of these artists are giving game. A lot of these artists are giving ways out. They're trying to give perspective. And instead of us, necessarily bullying them for what we're saying, we need to take a step back and analyze why they're saying certain things. When we take ourselves out of our shoes, especially with this rap community, the white people or people who necessarily aren't tied into the community or tied into the culture of what's actually happening in these songs, they're just getting a kick out of listening to us trauma dump. But to people who actually went through it or people who actually, was somewhat close to it, these things are traumatizing. Rappers are putting out this music in an effort to vent, in order to get what's off their chest and enlighten the next person, whether they see it or not. A lot of these rappers are not ignorant. When you actually listen to what they're saying, they had to have a certain level of self-awareness in the first place to admit that they're, certain ways. In order to talk about certain things in your music, you had to do the inner work to actually understand what you were going through. You had to do the inner work to actually be able to articulate it. So these people have immense amounts of self-awareness, but we have to realize the industry and the time that we're in as well. People aren't very fond of the good-hearted, nothing but good, positive energy type of music. Now, granted, when you go to different parts of the world, Africa, right? Africa, there is a scheme over there where it's like, wow, this is very positive and loving, and it's very amazing. And the R&B scene has started implementing it, a lot recently too, especially with the women. Things like Cleo Soul, knowing that you are loved and everything. We're trying to make that adjustment, but it's going to take time, especially in the rap scene. So, guys, I really want you guys to acknowledge what rap actually is. It was something for Black people. It was something for, the ghettos, in other words. And it gave an opportunity for the people who didn't necessarily have an opportunity to speak. It gave people that platform. You know how many people got rich, was able to help their families, help their friends, help their communities, solely because they were able to put out music? That right there was a blessing for Black people, because we needed an outlet. And not everybody was going to go to school and be lawyers, doctors, electricians, and everything else. Some of us we knew that was a trap. We knew that was the matrix. No matter how much money you put on top of it, we know it's the matrix. And that's kind of why a lot of us don't want to do it. No matter how much you're going to pay us, we know what that is. It's only so much that you can ask from somebody. We stuck here and you want us to follow your rules to the T. Okay, now chapter 3 is titled Beauty and the Struggle, right? And in this chapter, I'm basically talking about the broken households and stuff that we go through. South Central doesn't have a lot of resources for the youth and the kids, that's staying here. A lot of our households are broken, single parent households. And if they aren't single parent households, there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of broken dynamics happening. And there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of survival mode. When you grow up in these environments, we are constantly on 10. We are constantly overstimulated because of past experiences, because of trauma, because of the overstimulation of just living in a certain place. We never get the chance to actually, live, to learn, to grow, because we're stunted by the anxiety and the stress that's being put on us. And as children, as kids, that's making us very violent. A lot of these people who grew up in South Central and stuff like that, they wouldn't be as violent as they were if they were truly gave a real chance. If they were truly showed the love that they were supposed to be gave. If they were truly gave the attention. If they were truly gave just the opportunity to be something more, a lot of these people would take it. A lot of these people are aware that there's something else out there, but due to circumstance, due to the things happening around them, they feel stuck. Not stuck physically because they have their freedom, but it's an emotional stuck because of emotional baggage due to the environment. That is very, 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 very detrimental. However, there is a lot of beauty in that struggle, because there's so much growth that comes when a man can acknowledge that he's in shit and he gets himself out of it. It's so much growth that happens when a man can acknowledge his community has love despite all the trauma, despite the violence, despite the things going on. You can walk down the street, you can see somebody feeding the homeless. You can walk down the street and you see love. You see people struggling, but still with a smile on their face. That is the beauty. And when we focus on the beauty of where we're at, when we focus on the love and the integrity and the community that we actually do have, because truthfully speaking, there's a reason why Other races aren't tramping through our community. Yes, just gentrification is a real thing and they're trying to, but we have to be real. They having to try. You get what I'm saying? They're having to actually put a lot of money up to wipe us out because we do have communities. And the quicker that we can acknowledge, now, yes, our hoods, quote unquote, are our communities, and we start treating the whole collective of all of this South Central as one thing, we'll stop seeing the gentrification happening. We'll probably start seeing a lot more healthier food start reaching into the community because everybody knows once a community gathers their resources, the investments that community can make for the community is out of this world. You're going to start seeing Whole Foods in the hood. You're going to start seeing Simply Wholesomes in the hood. You're not going to have to drive to Culver City. You're not going to have to drive to Beverly Hills or something like that just to get some good food. You're going to see more Trader Joe's and farmers markets. You're going to see these things because Black people are consciously aware of what we need. We're not stupid, but we just feel like it's out of our reach. You know, it's some crazy shit when you feel like you got to drive 30, 40 minutes just to get some good food, just to get, some decent things. That's not overly salted. That's not literally ruining your health because a lot of the things that they leave in the hood are the things that's not necessarily good for your health. If you were to eat it every single day, it would cause health problems. And they know this. It's done by design. I think this is also like a very good segment to acknowledge our parents too, because our parents grew up with a lot of bullshit. Our generation in Los Angeles is dealing with it was like we're not as deep in their traumas and their problems because the scheme of LA did change a lot since the 80s and the 90s, but we still feel that generational trauma. The things that our parents had to go through, the things that our parents had to instill in their mindset and their perspective solely to survive, those things got passed on emotionally, spiritually, and there's certain things that's overstimulating us as the youth, as the kids, 22, I'm only 22, just to get that out there, that's causing us to make bad decisions, that's causing us to not believe in ourselves and take certain routes because your household is very, very, very important. If you saw nothing but everybody struggling, you're going to probably have a difficult time getting yourself out of that. You're either going to use that as an inspiration to do something different, or it may succumb you. It may be overbearing for you. And when you're seeing people that you love go through these type of situations, it's easy for an adolescent mind to doubt themselves, especially when we start entering in the equation that, okay, a lot of these people didn't have dads. A lot of these people only had one parent in the household. So off rip, they were unbalanced and they were kind of at a deficit when it came to relationships and emotional intelligence. When you put that type of burden on a child who doesn't have a correct support system, he's going to fall victim to it, period. The only way to avoid those type of things is by having the right support system. Like my parents had me when they were 20, 21 years old. There's no way in hell they found themselves at 21 years old living on Crenshaw. There's no way that happened. So we have to be honest with ourselves. A lot of our parents did give up their life because they started certain things too early. They tried to grow up too fast. They moved. They played their cards a little bit too fast in advance, and it halted their life because they didn't get a chance to heal. Especially, a lot of people moved over to the west side. A lot of our families was over there on the east side. And I noticed that trend when I noticed my grandpa was from the Watts Prophets, all that type of stuff there in Watts. But then when I talked to my mom, she grew up in the projects too until she moved over to Crenshaw and Slauson. A lot of our parents grew up in very bad conditions, and it was after some type of generational wealth or somebody decided to make the move and move over here to the west side. So if you are on the west side, you're living a better life, right? But a couple generations back, they were probably living way more fucked up than you were, and we feel that. That's what I'm saying. The things that a lot of the youth right now we're going through isn't necessarily byproducts of our immediate environment right now. While yes, things are going on, we're dealing with things that are passed down. And since we're dealing with things that are passed down, it's making us act out in ways that was happening before us. Where we're like, it's like ingrained ways and ingrained habits that tell us to do a certain thing when we feel a certain way, or prevent a certain thing to survive a certain way, because that's what our parents had to do, which isn't necessarily beneficial for us, especially as life evolves, the world changes, things grow. It's not always productive to be thinking in the same ways. Now, you take some of their gems because life is life. Some things it's just a truth. It's just a reality. But we have to acknowledge that innovation is a real thing. We don't think the same way that the Neanderthals were thinking. And to think that the Neanderthals knew as much as the current day human, we're like, they're not being realistic, And to actually end off that chapter too, I want you guys to realize that a lot of us, we're not planned. A lot of us were accidents. I want you to be like, I just be honest. The only reason why we were here is because our parents accepted us with a level of love. Now, I'm not saying that's with everybody, but most of the time, when it happened young, if your parents got, pregnant and, intertwined very young, that was not a conscious decision. It was a conscious decision to keep you, which means that we were entered into the love, we were entered into this world with love, being accepted, truly an unconditional love. Right? We came out the womb. We came out the stomach being embraced by love. Because if you are here breathing, your parents decided to keep you because they didn't have that. They could have chose a different route, So I think just acknowledging that, let alone the only reason why you are alive is because of love, unconditional love. You start to acknowledge the different avenues of love and the frequency of love, and you live out through it more. You're more receptive and accepting of that energy once you realize the only reason you are alive is because of love. Even before that, how'd you end up in your mama's stomach? Some love had to be made. Period. I'm actually going to take my glasses off too so I can get some eye contact with y'all so I can see this beautiful face. So chapter 5 is talking about childhood innocence. And this is because I believe that most of us was aware of what we wanted to do in life as a kid. We were aware of our purpose, our trajectory, the things that sparked us and really lit us up from the very beginning. However, as we grew up, certain things got put onto us, society's perspectives, teachers belittling us, parents maybe not believing in what you're going through. There was so many things that was put onto us negatively, and that over time we started to get further away from the things that made us who we are, the things that truly lit us up from the very beginning. And as you fall more into adulthood, if you aren't stuck into the matrix, if you aren't just just not aware of what's happening around you, you started to acknowledge that you're losing parts of yourself. You started to acknowledge that you may not be acting or living in your truest self, in your truest version. So what did that cause you to do? That caused you to start looking backwards. That's caused you to start healing. And that caused a lot of us to start really doing that generational work. And for me, I noticed, I was editing my whole life, right? I was a gamer, right? There was so much things happening outside. I wasn't in the best of the communities. The school I went to was TFSCS. It's right there on the corner of Crenshaw and Vernon. Oh, my timer went off. But yeah, it was right there on Crenshaw and Vernon, and anybody from LA knows exactly where I'm talking about. It wasn't necessarily the best of communities to be growing up in. And then my preschool was right there on Crenshaw and Hyde Park. So as somebody who was antisocial and introverted, I wasn't having a lot of success making friends with these type individuals. A lot of them were more outward, a little bit more rugged. They were just, products of their environment, which was okay because I am too, right? But I just wasn't able to make a lot of friends. And that trend stayed consistent even into my adulthood. So what I started to do, since I was just at home all the time, I remember getting this Xbox 360 for Christmas. And it literally became like my best friend. I would just stay inside, just playing the video games and stuff like that. And that became my peace of mind at the time because there was so many things happening that felt like out of my control. I just needed a space for myself to be myself. And in that process, I noticed I started uploading YouTube videos. I have a YouTube video where my voice is still squeaking. Me talking about how I'm going to upload gaming videos and cheat codes and stuff like that, right? I went down that whole route and I saw other content creators and, I was making friends with people on Xbox and it was like, okay, I want to create content too. So let me start learning how to edit my own videos since I can't necessarily pay anybody and I don't have the money to get these type of things done for me. I'm just going to do it myself. And I downloaded the cracked versions of Adobe Premiere Pro, Sony Vegas, the editing programs. In other words, the cracked version just means pirating the apps, getting them illegally for free so you can do what you got to do, right? I did that on the super old laptop where it would literally take me days to edit a video and a couple days to render it. And then on top of that, I was on a Wi-Fi, a hotspot. So then when it was time to upload, that might take another couple of days. I was taking weeks upon weeks for just like a little 2-3 minute edit because of the equipment hardware, but I was dedicated to it. And I remember making a spreadsheet in 2017 and it says siblings VFX editing prices. It's actually the same thing I turned into my business, my LLC, which I, handle clients with now. It was because I noticed that's something I started as a kid, and I had this Google sheet where it's like, I'll teach you how to edit for $20, and I'll edit your clips for $5. As a kid, I didn't realize what I was doing. I was literally being like I was literally an entrepreneur from the very beginning, but I wasn't consciously aware of how things were playing out. And then, grew up, went to this Los Angeles film school because I got forced to go to college, which I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to talk about in one of the later chapters. And life just started to make a complete 360 the moment I started embracing and remembering who I was. Because in the process of all of this, man, when we grew up, you say you're a gamer, especially back then. We're talking about, like, I grew up in 2002. So we're talking about 2002 all the way up into 2020 when I graduated high school. The streamers and gaming, content creators and all that type of stuff, like, yes, it was a thing, but it wasn't normal where we grew up. So it wasn't always encouraged. You'll say you're trying to do something, you might bring up the idea, and they might just throw it off like it's, nothing. Everybody focused on being outside, playing sports. Certain people was game banging at the time. Crazy enough, I didn't even realize, when you're young too, you see people game banging, you just think that's their demeanor. You just think that's who they are. But, like, growing up, you started looking like, oh, that's why he was acting like that. Oh, like, but honestly, I believe being separated from the crowd may have actually helped me belong, beyond belief, because it gave me enough space to actually start learning the things that I wanted to do. When you're by yourself and you actually don't have friends, my mom was very strict too. She didn't let me out the house. My mama was the type of person, she was like, man, your daddy's side, they gangbanging and stuff like that. It's violence and stuff happening outside. I'm not letting you outside. Here's his video game. You sit right here. And I'm literally, like, begging. Like, I'm, like, literally crying, pleading to go outside. I wanted to be outside so bad. My mama wasn't letting it happen, which, added to the level of antisocialness and introvertedness that I, adapted throughout my life. But like I've been saying, it damn near helped me, because since I wasn't on the scene, since I wasn't in everybody's faces, I was at home, I was editing. I was building a skill set that actually made me very confident in my young adulthood and my early 20s and stuff like that. The reason why I'm so confident in it is because I've been doing it for so long. If you just started to do something, do you really think you're actually going to be confident in that? And do you actually think that's going to be your purpose? The way that people start acknowledging purpose is when you can look back and notice it's like a consistent, habit of yours. You've been doing this certain thing your whole life. And crazy enough, if you were to do it more, it could change your life. My purpose came to me by me just being aware of what was happening, by me being aware of what was going on, and embracing my passions, because that's truly what it came down to. What was I passionate about? Okay, God gave a lot of us the opportunities to execute on the things we're passionate about. However, it comes down to our self-esteem, like what I've been saying, our environment, the people you're talking to, the things you're consuming, that's going to dictate whether you act on it or not. Acting on it is literally a determining factor in everything. You could have the golden idea, the $1 million idea. If you didn't put your foot on the gas, it's probably not going to work. But when you look back, you naturally had your foot on certain gas pedals without you even consciously thinking about it. You were doing certain things. If you can bring awareness to the good things that you were doing, oh my God, you'll switch the tide. You'll turn the tide, because you'll feel more confident and you'll feel more liberated in self, knowing that you're doing something that you're meant to. You didn't choose it out of scarcity or survival. You're doing it because it was actually meant for you to be doing it. That's so, so different. And it's so much more peaceful. It eliminates so much of the self-doubt. When you're trying to look outside of yourself for the answer, you're going to keep bumping your head into things. But the moment you can look inside, the moment you can bring a level of introspection in and just look at your own patterns, answer your own question, you'll make yourself happier. The environment, our environment isn't a very good place to be looking outward. I'm just being honest. All right, so now this chapter, I might have got the last chapter wrong, but this one's chapter 5, and it's chapter, where are you from, homie? Right? This chapter was solidifying that I understood my environment and the things that was happening, right? Being a nerd, being somebody who was in the house is typically interpreted as we had no idea what was happening just on the other side of our door, right? We were very aware. We heard the shots too. You know, we seen the tapes. We had to deal with the same things. And it made me acknowledge both sides of who I am. My mom grew up, started in the projects, moved over to Crenshaw and Slauson, or looking for a better life because the West Side was better than Watts. And then my dad just straight out, banging, doing his thing. I noticed I adapted qualities from both people. My mom, she went and got her master's degree in business. My dad's a hustler. If you look at my traits right now, I'm doing both of those things. I started my business. I executed on the things my mom didn't have the time to because she had a child. So instead of her building the business, she went to work. Now I have the business. My dad, he hustling, doing this thing, but he wasn't able to, make use of what he got gave because he was giving his attention to other things around him and other people that wasn't necessarily for him or helping him. So he got stuck in a certain lifestyle. But me, I was able to peep game. You're taking care of yourself, even at the slightest amounts. You can take care of yourself without having to go to a job. Okay, I have a business and I understand that I don't need a quote unquote job to take care of myself. It just made me go even harder into my entrepreneurial abilities because realistically, I saw boss mentalities around me. If you're in the streets hustling, you're doing your thing, that's a boss mentality. You don't want to be told what to do. You're going to do it yourself. And it may not always be the best thing to do, but it's the truth of the situation. You're going to figure it out. You're going to do what you have to make sure the bills get paid. You feel me? Same thing with my mother, her always, talking about business and stuff like that, even though she didn't necessarily go down the route yet, life may change. She may actually take action on it. Just being around somebody where they're talking about, money moves. She's working in Beverly Hills all of a sudden and she has Jewish clients and just hearing the conversations about loans, all this other type of stuff. You feel me? That's boss talk. That's boss mentality. And it really did scope me, It kept me grounded too. It made me also remember who I was, Life could have easily went down a certain trajectory. I could have easily ended up a certain way. But the fact that I was isolated and to myself, it changed everything. Like when I say my mom had me when she was staying with my TT on 60th and 8th, right? So she was like, okay, this isn't necessarily a good place to be raising a child, right? And I need my own place, like I have a baby, I can't just be sitting here at my auntie. So let's move to Hawthorne, right? So she got this apartment in Hawthorne, but then we were still going to school on Crenshaw, Vernon and everything. And she actually was working on Crenshaw and Vernon at the Chase. So she was like right across the street a lot of times, Once it got to that point, it was like, okay, yes, we moved out of the community, quote unquote, to somewhere safer, but all day I'm over here. Right after school, she still has to go to work. So she's picking me up on her lunch breaks and then dropping me off at my auntie's house right there on, like, I think it's 54th and 9th. 54th and 10th is like right behind the gas station, right on the right next to the church, just by that gas station. We walk into Dollar Tree and stuff like that. Like my life was consumed by Crenshaw Avenue, which was crazy because I just wasn't aware of the things that was going on around me. I remember asking my mom, "Yeah, I want to go to Crenshaw High." I'm telling her, I'm like, bro, all my homies about to go to Crenshaw High. Like, everybody I know is going to Crenshaw High. Can I just go? And she's like, hell no, you can't go. And then my dad was like telling my mom, nope, I don't want him going to Crenshaw either. Like, everybody was focused on the gang activity. But in my head, I'm like, I'm not even like entertained. Like, I wasn't even aware that they were there. I just want to go to Crenshaw because that's where all my boys, like that's where it seems like all the fun is going to be. And I'm not going to feel awkward and uncomfortable. But as adults, they kind of understood that that's probably how it starts. You just thinking that these people are your friends, it's comfortable, it's normal, etc. And then you get involved in some shit that you necessarily wasn't supposed to get involved in. So I'm happy it played out the way that it played out, but it necessarily isn't what I wanted. And I remember, crazy enough, Nipsey shot the music video to Rap Niggas right in front of the door my auntie TT stayed at. If you go watch the video, I think it's like apartment number 2 or something like that. When There's dudes all up on the top rail and stuff like that. I think there was like a little garden or something like that in the middle of there. I don't know if they took it out or something like that. I haven't been over there for clear reasons. But I was like dead smack in the mix, and I just didn't realize it. But it was so much of a blessing because it did make you a little bit militant without you realizing it. It made you be able to read people's characters sooner than later. It made you be able to acknowledge a threat sooner than later. It made you it just made you aware, you know? And it's a very touchy thing for a lot of people because we can't predict what comes out of that environment. We've just seen the best of the best come out of South Central, and we've just seen the worst of the worst come out of South Central. It's always down to the roll of the dice. But, it's just kind of an unfortunate situation because it's not a lot of guidance that's pushing people towards a certain route. We say that there is, we add all these programs in school, but come on now, we're not paying attention to what the fuck these people are talking about in these classrooms with these community resource programs. That's not actually helping anybody. These food drives, these random, okay, I get it. But our communities need direction. We're giving the community resources with no direction and then wondering why they keep coming back asking for more resources. We're not pushing enough people towards a certain perspective or an ideal or a way of living. So no wonder they're soaking up the resources, then coming back like, hey, we need more. We're still struggling. And then the people who's giving is like, well, you guys feel like leeches. No, they're not leeching off anything. You just haven't gave them what they actually needed. Information, knowledge, wisdom, perspective. That's what's actually going to get these people out the hood. It's not the money because they're going to blow it. You give a nigga who don't know what to do with $1 million, he's going to be broke by next year. I promise you. I promise you. But if you actually gave them a little bit of knowledge about what to do, how to move, how to make money, how not to make money, how to stay safe, how to stay free as a black man, you give that nigga $100, he's going to come back with 500. And then it's just a ripple effect. He's going to keep growing it, but he needed to be set on a certain path. These OGs, these big homies and shit like that, they aren't out here setting people on the right path. Stop telling niggas to go rap. Stop telling niggas to go trap, go hustle. Stop telling them to go play sports. Stop. There's so many different things that these people could be doing. So many different things. We need doctors. We need lawyers. We need politicians. We need carpenters. We need engineers. We need plumbers. We need the real shit that people that like the backbone of our society. The things that's making our lights turn on and shit. We need more of those people. Because crazy enough, they get some money, they could reinvest it, they could get rich. I don't know. We don't know. But everybody's focused on we need to be a big baller in the community, that people are taking stupid ass risks instead of doing what's integrally right. And if you end up there, you end up there. If you shoot for $1 million integratively, if you fall short, hey, fuck it. We tried. If you hit it, you just hit the lottery, because not a lot of people will. I think it was a 0.1% of society is actually going to get to surpass that amount liquid cash. Not a lot of people are actually going to get there. So if you did, that was a blessing. But if you put it in your head, man, I'm about to make $1 million in the streets, you probably aren't going to get there. You're going to probably end up in this dirt or in jail, because there's so much shit that comes with trying to make $1 million in the streets that you're going to set yourself back. It's going to cause so much mental health that it could have worked. But there's just so much trauma and bullshit happening around you until you, because of the life you chose, it's not going to work. I'm so serious. It could be something that's so simple as, nigga, you niggas could sell dirt. It could work. But if you selling it to niggas who's hating on you, you selling it to niggas who want to take your dirt from you and all this other type of shit, come on now. You're not going to hit that million. You're going to get caught up in some bullshit before you get there. So I always suggest people take the legal route. Take the right route. Take the morally and integratively right route. And that takes guidance. That takes somebody saying, yes, you can do this, because I know it's tempting. Take this, go here, sell it to this person, get the money, give it, pay your dues, take some, I understand it's like a step-by-step thing, and it's very tempting. We need more people saying, okay, don't do that. I know it seems tempting. I know it's very fast, but nigga, come over here, grind that shit out. Take your fucking time. Make something of yourself. We need more OGs telling people that, because we'll see a lot of violence will go down. We'll see a lot of violence go down. We'll see a lot more love happening in the community solely off the direction. A kid with no direction is going to do whatever the fuck he wants. And if that child is emotionally unaware and he doesn't have a lot of emotional capacity, the hell, he's going to start crashing out. And he's actually going to do it. Like, he isn't just going to think about crashing out. He's actually going to do it because he didn't have no direction. That's what's happening. A lack of emotional intelligence is making people crash out because they don't understand how to deal with the fuck they're going through to make a better decision in the moment. When you're dealing with an emotion that's so heavy that you don't understand, it's very easy to just make a decision based on the emotion. You're going to make whatever decision is going to stop that emotion as soon as possible instead of sitting in it. Let me figure it out. What's the actual best route to take right now? And then doing that. Okay. Now, the last chapter I'm going to touch on in this book for this video is fuck love. Love has taught me actually a lot about myself. And Los Angeles ain't the best place to be dating right now. I'm just like, let's be real. It's so much trauma packed on, not even from, I want to say, each other. Because yes, we're doing things to each other, but dog, our environment is messed up. We're overstimulated. We can't sit straight. You know, like I'll be in the car, one of my homegirls, something like that. She on 10. She peeping every window. I'm like, baby, we not even over there. Chill out. You feel me? But we're just so overstimulated. Like, how can you focus on love? How can you build love when you're constantly on 10? You're not sitting in it. Love takes space. Love takes patience. Love takes, a certain level of vulnerability that you're probably not going to get to when you're focused on surviving. And I think that's probably the biggest thing right now why love isn't happening in our communities. We're all in survival mode. We're all trying to take care of ourselves and stay alive on top of that. You don't have time to be loving up and hugging up on somebody. It's like, damn, I gotta get this money. And it'd be so stupid, man, because nobody in this city wants to take accountability for anything. The girls, they be doing dumb shit. They be talking crazy. They be saying they just be knowing they out of pocket. They don't give a damn. They gonna do what they want. They gonna say what they want. They gonna act how they want. And I get it. Do what you want, mamas. But damn, you gotta have a little bit of self-accountability to know that sometimes you put in yourself in these situations. That nigga ain't crazy for acting how he acted. You talking crazy. You sparked it out of him. Same thing goes with the men and stuff like that. First and foremost, you shouldn't be putting your hands on no woman, period. And if you seeing another nigga beat on a nigga, think wisely, right? I was gonna say intervene, go beat his ass, but then some of them niggas will kill you for doing that. And you see, that's the problem with men. You guys will get triggered. You will be in the wrong and then get mad when you're being held responsible for what you're doing. Stop getting these relationships traumatizing these women, treating them like shit, and then wondering why they're treating you like shit. And I think that's this pimping culture or something like that has men thinking you're going to treat her like shit and she's going to give you everything. What? That doesn't even make sense. You're going to treat her like shit and she's going to treat you like shit to the extent that she can still get what she wants out of you. And the moment you can't do that anymore, this disrespect's going to be out the fucking world because it wasn't real in the first place. But for some reason, our communities lack a problem of self-accountability. We don't realize we may be the problem. We're starting certain things. We're cheating. We're trying to like we're lying. We're not being straight up with people. Like, imagine, it's crazy too with the cheating thing because a lot of that's happening in Los Angeles. You guys wouldn't be in the situations you would be in if you had enough courage to actually say what you wanted from the beginning. I don't want a exclusive relationship with you. I just want to touch you. Or I don't want an exclusive relationship. I just want to be polygamous or whatever the case may be. Some of them will fucking do it. But the problem is you lied, said you wanted one thing when you really wanted another thing. And then when that thing got found out that you wanted something else, it became a problem. You literally damaged the woman. It's crazy. You do more damage by lying to her and telling her that you want something that you don't actually want by actually just telling her what she wants. They be wanting it too sometimes, and you just got to say it. But you lying and planting the seed in her head made her believe a certain thing that was just going to fuck it up for the next person. It's literally like we're causing our own things. And then we start finding new women And we're like, oh, this girl's damaged. This girl's acting a certain type of way. This girl has an attitude. But you're the reason why another girl is acting that exact same way. Another man is dealing with your mess that you're created while you're dealing with another man's mess. If we weren't causing so many messes, we wouldn't have so many messes. It's like it's always this thing of self-accountability. How you can't keep pointing at each other. The men can't keep pointing at the women, and the women can't keep pointing at the men, trying to point out each other's flaws while completely ignoring what the fuck's their issue. Nobody's healing. It's so easy to point the finger. It's so easy. And that's what a lot of people are doing on social media. And since we don't have good households, since we don't have daddies in the house, and since we don't have mamas in the house who are actually, units, couples, real partnerships, we don't even understand that what we're doing is fucked up. The internet is showing us so much negative propaganda that we're acting on it and thinking that it's reality. Then it's not. It's not. It's not. It's not. It's not. I've been saying for the longest, a lot of things come down to cause and effect. We all looking at the effect. What caused the shit? That person's like that. What happened? They didn't wake up like this. They didn't come out their mama like this. What happened? Until we start looking at it as like, okay, what happened to me? Oh, I'm acting like, okay. Now we can change. Now we can choose better. Now you're going to be aware of the woman that's actually healed. The moment a man starts healing, you start seeing more healed women. I promise you, it'd be like clear as day. You be outside, let's say you working out, you doing yoga, you reading, journaling, all of a sudden there's another girl right there next to you doing the exact same thing. It's like healing is like this magnetic force. When you're doing what's true to you and you're doing something that's high vibrational, you're going to attract other high vibrational beings. If you're doing some bullshit, if you're doing something that's low vibrational, you're going to continuously attract just that. Ain't nothing gonna change. That's just gonna be your stereotype. That's gonna be your type. That's gonna be your standard until you change. It's crazy. I read this thing. It was like your frequency is what you frequently see. If you think some shit is true, if you think a perspective about your life is real, if you think that's all that you can get, if you think that's all that's possible, that's all you're going to see. And that's like the person who's like, oh my God, I think the max I could probably get right now is like a 20 per hour job, $25 per hour job. If you think the most that you can make is $25 an hour, you're going to only see the jobs that's paying you $25 an hour. You're not even going to be receptive to the ones that's probably paying you 60, 70, 100, because those jobs exist, but you're not even going to be looking for those type of positions because all you think that you're worth is the $25. Relate that to relationships. You think the only thing you're worth or capable of getting is this fucking bum. So you're about to sit there and deal with bum shit until you actually realize, oh, wait a minute. Wait a damn minute. There's not bum niggas that I could be dealing with. There's not bum bitches that I could be dealing with. I'm sorry to use that language, but sometimes I got to keep it 100. It comes down to choices. So, we can sit here and act like the dating culture is so terrible. LA is, this rotten place where just everybody is a 304 and love don't exist here. No, that love probably don't exist within you. You're probably a 304, so you're attracting the same thing. It's so simple. It's so damn simple. My G, look out here. You see how many, you think everybody a 304? You're high. With that being said, man, I love y'all. I love y'all. I love y'all. If y'all do want to go down and get the book for yourself so you guys can get, some deeper perspective, because this was honestly just off the dome using the book for reference, go down there in the description. This down there in the shop as well as the healing material. I released my frequency, my healing guide book for men and women. That part is focused a lot on more of, your emotions and intuition and stuff like that, which is beneficial for our men out here too. We need a lot more spiritually in tune men so we can actually be, regulate this shit, bring some balance back to what's happening out here. But yeah, if you guys want to check that out, make sure, you go down in the description, hit like, comment, subscribe, and I'm going to catch y'all in the next video, man. I love y'all.